Now, I did actually already start building that application, which I want to continue today in my last live stream, which was last week. And I pushed the entire code to GitHub. So if you want to follow along, which you obviously don't have to, but if you want to follow along, you can do so. You can visit that GitHub repository, get the code there. I made some minor styling adjustments compared to the code I finished with last week, simply because it looked pretty ugly. But other than that, it's the same application. And it looks like this. So yeah, I guess you can see it. I'm not in the way, great. I got my prompt field down here. I can send a message like, give me the code for changing a paragraph on a web page when clicking a button. So I can send prompts like this. I see my message here then, and then I'm streaming in the response. And as you can see, that response is not formatted right now. So that, of course, is an issue. And the app got a couple of other issues as well. At the moment, there also is no authentication. The messages and the message history is not stored on the server. There's a bunch of stuff that can be improved, and that's what I want to do today together with you. In this app here, the way I built it, in case you did not watch last week's stream, I'm using Hono, which is a JavaScript framework, which you could use as an alternative to Express.js, for example. I'm using Hono for both the server side and client side because, unlike Express.js, Hono does offer both sides, so to say. So you can use that Hono framework to build or to write both the client side and the server side code. Somewhere here in the docs. Here, client components. You can also use Hono on the client side with a React-like syntax, with JSX, and a bunch of other stuff. So I did all that, and I have my client components here in this client folder. And in there, I have the chat TSX file, for example, which is the file that is responsible for outputting this part here, this interactive part, for displaying the messages, the prompt form, and so on. And then I got a backend. Here, app TSX, and in that backend, I have my post route here, which gets the prompt that's sent from this form, and where I then use the generate stream or the stream text function in the end from the Vercel AI SDK to get a reply by an AI model, by GPT-4o Mini in my case here, because I'm not able to access O3 and all that stuff through OpenAI's API because I'm not spending enough money with them. So that's why I'm using this. Now, I'm not just sending the message that's entered here to the AI model. Instead, with help of the AI SDK, I'm sending an array of messages. I'm sending my message history to the backend. And that history at the moment is managed on the front end here in my state, which might not be ideal. So that is something I might want to change. But the first thing I want to change here is the formatting, because at the moment, this does, of course, not look too great. And the reason for that is that the AI model is actually sending back a string in the end, some text, but that text contains text that's formatted as markdown, or that's using the markdown formatting in the end. So it would be great if I would parse that string I'm getting back with a markdown parser and then render the HTML code that fits that markdown code, so that here on the front end, I'm actually not outputting this as a raw string, but instead as HTML elements based on the markdown I'm receiving. That's what I want to build. Or that's the first thing I want to add here. Now, I could do that markdown parsing in two different places. I could do it on the client side. So here, where I'm getting my my chunks of chat messages. Here on the front end, whenever I get a new chunk, I could essentially add it to the rest of the message I received thus far, and then parse that overall message with a markdown parser, get HTML code, and output that here. I could do that, but I actually don't want to do it on the server, on the client side, because parsing a string, of course, it's not super performance intensive, but it's not necessarily something I want to do on the client side. And I'll also use some libraries for that, which I also don't want to download on the client side. I don't want to force the users of my application to download a bunch of packages to parse that markdown string, which is why I would rather do that on the server side. So here in this post route. And my idea is, and we'll have to see whether that works, but my idea is to basically listen to all these chunks of text I'm getting from the AI model, from OpenAI, from the OpenAI API, and build a long message from all these chunks. So I want to basically build a complete message on the backend from all these chunks I'm getting. And I then want to parse that overall message I'm building step by step with a markdown parser and send it back, or send that parsed content to the front end, so that I'm doing the actual parsing on the back end. That's my goal, which also means that I'll need to change my logic here on the back end, because at the moment I'm just forwarding all those chunks I'm getting directly to my front end. I'm streaming the text as a response to the front end, and I'm just forwarding the chunks, and I need to change that. And thankfully, changing that is not too difficult. So that is what I want to do here. It's not too difficult, because what I can do is I can add a new variable here on the backend, complete message, which is an empty string initially, let's say. And then I want to change my logic here, and instead of just piping the stream that is provided by that stream text helper, which I get from Hono, instead of just piping my chunks into that stream, which is in the end making up the response, I can also have more control here by using an asynchronous for loop, which you can use with streamed data in JavaScript. So this is not Hono specific. This is a general JavaScript streams feature, so to say, so that I can loop through all the chunks I'm getting until there are no more chunks left. It will automatically end the loop once the stream of data is out of chunks. So once I'm getting no more pieces of text back from the OpenAI API. But as long as I am getting new chunks of text, I can basically add them to my complete message here, and then call the write method on this stream object, which I'm getting from the stream text helper function provided by Hono, and I can forward the complete message to the front end. So what I'm doing here is I'm building a message on the backend that's getting longer and longer, and I'm sending the complete message to the front end here. And if I do it like this, on the front, I'm still not parsing the markdown, of course, but if I'm doing it like this, then on the front end, I of course need to adjust the code to no longer build a message step by step there, but instead take into account that I'm already sending a complete message. Still in multiple chunks, but on the front end, I received a complete message. It's just getting longer and longer with every new chunk, so to say. So I don't need to build the complete message on the front end because I'm doing that on the back end. I hope it's clear what I mean here. And that will be the first step, the first thing I'll do here to then implement parsing on the back end. Maybe not the only way of doing it, but it's a way which I want to, it's one approach I want to use here. So, lots of talking. Let me implement this. And I have to get back into that code here because I actually haven't worked on that code in a week. So let's see, what do we have here? On the front end, I have an infinite loop, which I use to read my incoming stream of data from the backend. I'm decoding the value to convert those chunks, those bytes I'm getting in the end, to text. And that text will be that complete message that gets longer and longer. So on the front end, it's that text that I need to add here, that I need to set as a value for the content here, I think. Yeah. So that should be all, if I'm not mistaken. With that change, this is a test. With that change, looks like I still get my response streamed in here. Give me the code for displaying a red box. Yeah, looks a bit weird. It jumps around. Not sure where this is coming from. Let's see. I'm getting my text here, and then I'm updating my state here on the front end, overriding the content of the last message with that text. So I think that should be fine. Not sure why it's jumping around. Not sure where this is coming from. Let's see. Give me the code for displaying a red box. What exactly is happening here? So it's building this. It might just look that weird because line breaks are changing as the text is being displayed. It might just look weird. So I'll implement the markdown parsing and we'll then take a look at how it looks and behaves thereafter. Got one question here by PJB Coetzer. Hi Max, thanks for the opportunity to learn live so much better to experience the thought process during the coding session. And might you consider coding projects in Dino? Yeah, so that's why I'm doing these live sessions, because I thought it might be interesting for you guys to see how I struggle with certain problems and how I try to solve them. So yeah, definitely I want to continue doing projects. And yeah, I might also build projects with Dino. To be honest, it's been a lot of time since I last worked with Dino, but yeah, that might also be interesting, seeing me get back into it. But today, here, by the way, I'm actually using Bun. I'm actually running this development server with Bun. I built the project with Bun, which is also just a Node.js replacement in the end. Okay, so let's implement the markdown parsing. And for that, I want to use the remark package. And there are many packages, many libraries you can use with Node.js and also with Bun, therefore, that you can use, or with JavaScript in general, that you can use for converting Markdown to HTML. I like the remark package because it is part of the overall remark rehype package system, which, in case you don't know it, is a collection of packages, libraries, you could say, which you can combine freely to add as many features as you want to this markdown parsing process. You can actually even combine the packages to convert HTML to markdown. So the other way around if you wanted to. You can then easily add packages for syntax highlighting or not add them if you don't want that. So that's why I like these packages a lot. And you use these packages typically by installing the unified package, which is like the main package you need to plug in all those other remark rehype packages. And then you can use remark parse to parse a string that contains text formatted as markdown, use remark rehype to convert that to, not really to HTML, but to an abstract syntax tree that can then be converted to HTML. And then you can, for example, use the rehype stringify package to take that syntax tree and get an actual string that contains HTML content. And you can add more packages if you want to. So here, for a simple start, what I'll do is I'll call bun add, and I'll install or add the unified package. I'll add the remark parse package, so this package here, the remark rehype package to switch to the HTML world, and the rehype stringify package to then get that string that contains HTML code. And that should give me some basic markdown parsing. Yeah, it's rehype stringify. Okay, so now I installed these packages, can restart the development server with that. And now here on the backend, I'll import those packages. Actually, I can grab this code here, I guess, or all this code if I want to, and just get rid of the 2 packages I actually did not install here. And now with that, I can use the packages as shown here. So I can call unified and then chain the use method to add more and more plugins to that workflow here, if you want to call it like this, to this chain of actions I want to perform. So that is what I'll do. I'll call unified here. And actually, I don't want to do that here. I want to do it inside of my asynchronous loop here, because I want to parse this message for every new chunk I'm receiving, because every new chunk I get back from the AI model will give me a new message that contains more content, and I have to reparse the entire message because the HTML structure can also change with every new chunk. If there is like a code block in there, with the next chunk, it might be closed. So I have to reparse that entire message to get an updated, correct chunk of HTML code for the new message, essentially. So I'll call unified here, and I have to await this. And then I can call use here. And as a first, basically do what's suggested here, I guess. So as a first step, call remark parse to parse a string that contains markdown, then remark rehype to switch to the HTML world. So from the markdown world to the HTML world, from the markdown syntax world to the HTML syntax world, and then rehype stringify to create a new string. So I parsed the string here, got an abstract syntax tree, switched to the HTML syntax tree. Now I'm producing a new string that contains HTML code. And with that, I'll have the markdown parsed as HTML. And then I call process at the end to tell this entire chain here which string actually contains the markdown I want to parse. And that's my updated complete message here. And then as a result here, after calling await, I'll get my HTML in the end. Or to be precise, I'll get such a file, a virtual file in the end. It's not really a file on the file system, it's a virtual file. So I'll name it HTML file, I guess. And I have to convert this to a string. So the string I want to send with my response should actually be that HTML file converted to a string, which I guess I can do with the toString method. That should work. So in theory, and we'll see whether that works, but in theory, that should produce a string that's full of HTML code. On the front end, I now need to take this into account and no longer output my message content like this, because I no longer get a raw text string here. Instead, I need to render that HTML code I'm receiving. So what I want to do here is I want to go to my article, and use the dangerously set inner HTML prop, which you can also use in React. Here I'm using Hono, as I said, but it's very similar to React. I can use that to set this to an object where I have an underscore HTML property, and then my message content is the value for that. And that will take the HTML that's in that message content and render it as HTML to the screen. Now, we might also want to add sanitization, because theoretically the AI could generate markdown code that then contains code that could lead to a cross-site scripting attack. But for the moment, I'll leave it like this and see whether that works. So let's maybe reload here and then say, give me the code for displaying a red box. If I do that, still looks a bit buggy, but in general, it looks okay. Now, yeah, it still jumped around a bit, but what we can definitely see is that there is some formatting going on here. It's no longer that long unformatted text, but instead, this looks like proper HTML. And indeed, if I inspect this, I can see that I got a paragraph here, get a pre-tag with code in there, got an h3 element, and so on. Now, it's absolutely not styled. We can, of course, add that, and we should, but we got some HTML code here, which, of course, is great. Okay, so with that, this is looking good. Now, before I'll take a look at why it's still rendering it in a bit of a weird way, why it's jumping around, and what we can do there, I'd like to fix and improve the styling here. And that's tricky, at least at first sight, because of course I'm using Tailwind here for styling. The problem is that the HTML elements I'm getting here are not known to me in advance. So I can't add Tailwind classes to them because I don't have access to them here. They are generated dynamically. Now, of course, we could write some fancy code to evaluate the HTML code we get here at runtime and attach classes, but we don't have to, because Tailwind got a solution for us. Tailwind has the typography plugin or extension. Let me see. I want to check real quick, since Tailwind version 4 was released, if it's actually built into Tailwind. But I don't think it is. I think it's still a separate extension you have to install. Let me see. It definitely was in the past. A separate extension you can essentially install to solve the problem of adding Tailwind classes to dynamically generated content, which is the exact problem I got here. And in the past, I believe there was an entry in the documentation. If I switch back to an older version of the docs, yeah, there was this plugins area. Yeah, but I believe Tailwind CSS typography still works, or maybe it's not needed anymore. Let's see. If I change my class here on this article that contains the rendered content, if I change this to be, oops, template literal, what's happening here? So if I change this to be a template literal, why am I getting an error here now? What's wrong? Is there like a missing curly? There's a missing closing curly brace, right? Okay. So if I change this to be a template literal string, so that I can have some dynamically assigned classes, but also some hard-coded ones. Let's see. the pros class is not built in. So I'll need to install that extension, I think. So let's see. We can run this command here. Or since I'm using bun, I'll use bun add to install this plugin and then restart the dev server. And then, since I'm using Tailwind version 4, I need to go to the CSS file where I'm importing Tailwind. And in there, I'll also have to import Tailwind CSS typography, or add this plugin entry, I think. At least that's what they're telling me here in the official docs. And what this plugin, once installed, allows you to do is you can add a pros class to the container element that contains the dynamically rendered HTML content, and then use pros prefixes to apply certain styles. And it will make more sense once I start doing it. So here we can add pros as a general class to tell Tailwind that in this article we'll have some dynamically generated HTML content, which I want to style. And then I can say pros headings, for example, to apply some general styles to all headings, all H1, H2, H3 elements that are rendered dynamically here. For example, font bold. So with that, all headings should be bold. And if I just do that, and of course we could add more, I can target all A elements, all P elements, and apply styles to them simply by adding pros dash whatever you want to target as a prefix. But if I just target my headings and make them bold, we should see that if I go back and I say, give me the code for rendering a red box on a web page, if I do that, still get some weird behavior, but you can see there is some styling here, right? Even some styles I have not set up. This is definitely bold. It's also a bit hard to read, but it is bold. And I get some other styles here as well, which is great. Now, I think it's a bit hard to read because looks like there are some default styles which are not optimized to work on a dark background. So let's see if there is something like pros yellow. I guess there are some pre-built base styles. Let's take a look at the official docs. This plugin includes a modifier class for each of the 5 grayscales Tailwind includes by default, so you can easily style your content to match the grays you're using in your project. Yeah. But I'm not sure if that's my problem here. Applying a type scale. Adapting to dark mode. Each default color theme includes a hand-designed dark mode version that you can trigger by adding the pros invert class. I think that's what I need. I need the pros invert class here without the dark prefix, since my page is in dark mode all the time anyways. So now with that, let's again say, give me the code for displaying a red box on a web page. And if I do that, yeah, this now looks much better. Still some weird jumping going on. We'll figure it out, but it looks much, much better already. So just by installing that plugin and adding the pros class. So that's pretty neat. That's pretty good. Got some base code styles here as well. But of course, those could be improved. There is no syntax highlighting in there. And we might not need that. We might be fine with this look. Of course, we could do that. But I think we should also be able to add syntax highlighting without too many problems. At least, we'll see. That's my hope. Because there is a rehype plugin that can help us with code highlighting. The rehype highlight plugin, which I can simply add to this chain, which I set up here for converting my markdown. By the way, I did not prepare this in advance, so this might totally not work, but the hope is that it will. So I can install this plugin. added to my chain here, and then this should add some classes to the coded renders to apply some styles to that code. Now, the problem, of course, is that these classes are unknown by default. So I'll have to see how I can add the CSS code needed to really do something on the front end, because I'm converting it on the back end, of course, but I need the CSS styles for those classes that are added on the front end. So, let's see. What does it say here? Okay, looks like it's using these CSS styles defined by the lowlight package here. So if I add those to my page, it will hopefully work. But before I do that, let's actually see if applying these classes works. So I will install this rehype highlight package here with bun add rehype highlight, and then restart that development server. And then before I convert my HTML ready syntax tree to a string, I will add rehype highlight here and import that from the rehype highlight package I just installed. And that should hopefully apply these CSS classes to the HTML elements, these CSS classes that can then be used for syntax highlighting. So if I now also include that CSS package that contains the definitions for those classes. So if I grab this link here and then go back to my front end and there to my layout, let's say, and add that link, which pulls in the styles from a CDN, then hopefully I'll have some syntax highlighting. We'll see whether that works. So again, give me the code for displaying a red box on a web page. Does not look like syntax highlighting to me here. Now, if I inspect this, I can see, however, that these classes here are added, and these are the classes provided by this syntax highlighting package, right? So if we take a look at the rehype highlight documentation, in all these examples where they explain to us how the package works, we can also see these HLJS classes here. So we can see those class names here as well. So the fact that I can see them here in my code tells me that in general, the server-side part worked. It just looks like on the front end, these classes aren't actually defined. And for example, here in the head, this import is simply missing. Okay, now I reload it. Okay, it might simply come down to the fact that I did not reload. So let's see. Give me the code to render a red box on a web page. Let's see. Yeah, that looks much better. That looks much better. So this looks great. Now I got some syntax highlighting here as well. And this all happens on the server, except for the CSS styles on the front end. So that's pretty nice. Still, of course, you might also see that initially there is some weird duplication going on. Initially, it starts outputting the text twice before it then settles in and works the way it should. And then there was some weird jump at the end. And I'm not 100% sure where this is coming from. It could be some Hono bug here, since I'm not using React here on the front end or Vue or anything like that, but Hono. So it might be some weird state updating bug going on. Could definitely be the case. But it might also be a problem with my code, which is probably the better reason or the more likely reason. Though I feel like the code actually I feel like the code looks good. So whenever I receive a new chunk, an updated message from the backend, I update my list of messages on the front end. I update the last message. I create a copy, first of all, and then in that copy, I overwrite the last element, which is the message that's currently being streamed in, and I set it to a new object where the content is set to the new updated text I'm getting from the backend. So this looks all right to me. This looks all right to me. So not sure why I get this weird behavior. But it might also not be too important here, because I think there's also something else I want to change. And I'm just thinking about this right now. I might totally not change it once I thought this through. But one thing I also am not sure if I like it is the fact that I store the entire list of chat messages in some state on the front end. I might prefer storing that list of messages, the message history, on the backend, for the moment, maybe in some variable, later in a database. And then on the front end, it might, I'm not sure. Now, of course, I need to somehow also store that list. Well, yeah, on the front end, I actually might want to render my history when the page is loaded. And if there is no history, it's essentially an empty chat. But then I might just want to manage the currently rendered message, the latest message. So the message I'm currently getting back from the AI. I might just want to manage that with state on the front end. Though, of course, I'll have to store my history on the front end too, I guess, because whenever I'm having a discussion going on and I'm sending messages back and forth, I'll need to update the list of messages on the front end, because server-side rendering them is great for the first page load, but not for a discussion thereafter, where I also need to keep track of my list of messages. So now that I think about it, maybe I do need to store the entire history in state, in some state on the front end. Yeah, maybe I need to do that. Alternatively, I could also think about storing it in local storage, for example, on the front end. Could have some advantages, but either way, somewhere I think I'll have to store the entire history. Yeah. There might not be a great way around that. Which again, of course, leaves the question why I got this weird duplication at the beginning, and this weird behavior of it jumping around from time to time. Might also not be the most important thing right now, though. Instead, we could also continue by working a bit more on the backend, because at the moment, of course, I got only one post route, chat, and one get route, chat, which renders this chat page. And at the moment, there is no way to have different chats. And I'm also not storing the chat history on the server at all. I'm just storing it on the front end. So if I have a follow-up question like, great, can you make it blue? That should work, because I'm always sending the entire history to the backend. And by the way, we could, of course, improve the styling such that this box is not pushed down, but instead the replies are pushed up. But I'll not worry about that right now. I can do that, but of course, the problem I still have is that whenever I reload, this is all gone because I'm not storing it. Yeah, exactly. As you say, Shimya, I should definitely store those chat histories on the server, and we should be able to have different chats. And Uncivil, yeah, I'm not sure. I think maybe there was no jumping, but it also started with some duplicate text initially, I think, for that follow-up message. But I'll leave that be for now. Instead, let's start implementing the feature of having multiple chats. First, by the way, I'll add a little git commit here, because I did, of course, implement markdown parsing. So that sounds like a reasonable thing to snapshot. And then we can think how we approach implementing multiple chats. So I think what I'd like to have is a get route which takes some dynamic parameter. And in Hono, I have to look this up because I haven't worked with Hono before. I assume, yeah, it's also colon and then some placeholder for your parameter. And I guess the question mark here means that it's optional. Yeah, will match a path without the parameter and with it. So if I don't want to make it optional, I could have my chat ID here, for example. And of course, this placeholder name is up to me. And then here, before I return this code, what's wrong here? Yeah, before I return this, I would have to retrieve the chat history for the provided chat ID from the database. And of course, if there is no history for that ID, I might want to either open a new chat or show a 404 error. And actually, I want to make that optional because, of course, you should also be able to visit just /chat. And if there is no ID provided, I want to just start a new chat. The same thing as if there is an invalid ID, let's say. But of course, in order to retrieve a chat from a database, I first of all need to store it there. So whenever I post a new message and I get back a new reply, I want to store that in my database, I guess. And now for storing, there are different databases I could use, different packages. I want to use SQLite because SQLite is an amazing lightweight database, which is very powerful, very scalable, and which can easily be set up without setting up a server. So it's amazing. I'll use SQLite. And just for fun, because I have not worked with it too much and I want to learn a bit more about it, I'll use Prisma, which is a package that helps you with interacting with SQL databases. Or I think it's not just SQL actually, but also SQL. So let me stop that dev server and let's install Prisma. And I guess that's the command I can run. Also with bun ? Let's see. It's been a long time since I last worked with Prisma, like 2 years ago. So we'll have to see. Not deployment. Where's my getting started stuff? Introduction. What is Prisma? In your stack, databases, sure. Here, setup and configuration, introduction. Set up, add Prisma to an existing project. Boy, where are the instructions? Okay, so Prisma as a development dependency, because I guess if I recall correctly, no, I don't know. Sure, let's add it as a development dependency. Did I say production? I mean development. Okay. So with that, I can run npx Prisma. Sure. And then I should run npx Prisma init. And I think the bun equivalent, which is probably not needed, but is bunx if I'm not mistaken. Great. So what this gives me is a Prisma folder. I do remember that in a schema.prisma file. And the idea with Prisma simply is that you can define schemas for your models in the end, for your data. So define how your data will be structured, define which kind of database you want to connect to, and so on. And then run a certain command, which we'll look up momentarily. And Prisma will then generate type definitions, or it will actually generate an SDK on demand, so to say, for your specific data models, which is pretty amazing. So I want to use it with SQLite. So in that case, I have to set my data source DB, set the provider to SQLite, and the URL, for example, to file, and then the path to your file. And I think it will create it if it doesn't exist yet. So here I'll name it appdb. Now that's not all that will go into this schema Prisma file. Instead, I already get some suggestions here, but that's not what I want. Instead, we can now define data models with the model keyword. By the way, you can install the Prisma VS Code extension to get some proper syntax highlighting there, which is very helpful. So then here I can have my chat model. And now let's see, every chat should have an ID, which I guess makes sense to be a string. A string where I'm dynamically generating a unique ID as a default value for every new chat. I could also use a numeric ID, but I guess we'll add authentications at some point later anyways, but without authentication, users could simply enter like /4 as an ID in the path, in the URL, and they might see a chat history by another user with a longer random string ID. Guessing IDs is harder, so I guess it makes sense to have that. Though, as I said, we'll add authentication later on, so it might not be too important. Still, I'll go with the string ID. Created at, updated at, sure, why not? And I guess that here means that Prisma will automatically update this timestamp whenever I'm touching an entry in my database. Here, as a default value, it will use the current timestamp, which makes sense. And then I need messages. And it probably makes sense to set up a relation here and set up a separate model for my message, for a chat message. Let's maybe call it chat message. And in there, every message should also have an ID. And I guess here I'm actually fine with a number. Is it number or is it integer? Int. So I guess I'm fine with that, auto-incrementing. Sure, have timestamps, have the content, which will probably be the raw, or it will be the parsed markdown. I'll have to see what makes more sense. Then a relation to the chat this message belongs to, because Prisma, I do also remember that, does allow you to set up relations, many-to-many, one-to-many, and so on. So here I'm basically saying that every chat message belongs to one chat. And I got my relation here where internally I'm using the chat ID in that chat message entry, which references the ID of my chat model. And on the other hand here in chat, I will have a bunch of chat messages, an array of chat messages to set up that other side of the relation. But that's not all. Actually, I also want to have a role here. And that should be a string, and I actually only want to allow 2 values. So is this allowed? Can I say that I want to allow just 2 values? like a union type where I say I have either assistant or user for my role. Will this be stored as a string? So I'm not sure. I'm not sure if I set up such a union type here, and where in the example can I see such a union type? Oh, I guess I'm in a different place here. Table inheritance. Well, that's not what I want. Let's see. Let's use AI, shall we? So let me quickly, I think I'm not logged in here. Let me go to a different screen. Because that sounds like a great use case for asking AI. I guess I could also use GitHub Copilot or use Cursor and ask in there, but let's use good old ChatGPT, O3 Mini. Hi, amazing. I like their names. Let's say I'm using the Prisma package for managing or for storing chat histories and the messages that belong to them. Every chat message has a role field that is either assistant or user. How would I set up my Prisma schema for this? Here's what I already have. And then I'll just grab this. Let's see. Let's see what we get here. Enum. Yeah, enum. That's what I was looking for, not union. You're right. Enum sounds great. But let's see what, yeah, here we got it. You can use Prisma enum to restrict the role field to just the 2 allowed values. Awesome. So if I just grab this updated code, paste it in, looks good. Will this enum be stored as a string, like user, in the table? Yes. Okay, so in that case, I want to have user lowercase and assistant lowercase here. Good. So with that, I'm storing my chat messages in a table, my chats in a table, and every chat consists of multiple messages, which I guess makes sense. Now, there might also be more efficient ways of storing that, since of course at the moment, whenever I'm retrieving a chat, I'll have to look for all the messages that belong to the chat. So storing all that data in the same table might also make sense. Using something like MongoDB or some other NoSQL database might make sense. But for the time being, I'll store it like this. But I'm just saying it might not be the most efficient way of storing this for querying it efficiently. But to get started, I'll do it like this. Okay, awesome. With that, oh, I closed the Prisma docs. With that, what do I need to do next? Where's the quick start code? Get started. No, I don't want to use that. Where is the quick start? Get started. Okay. I don't want to use Prisma polls. I want to go through the quick start. I ran init. I set up my schema. Now I have to run this command here. And I think that will then give me my own customized SDK in the end. Or do I need to run db pull and db generate, Prisma generate to turn your database schema into a Prisma schema? No, that's not what I want. Generate looks like the thing I want. Okay, so migrate will create those tables, makes sense. And then later at some point I'll have to run generate probably. Is this not in here? Okay, this is executed automatically by migrate. Got it. Okay, so let's see. I saved my schema file. Now that DB file was created, and I think this now also created, yeah, it created my own Prisma client that is essentially aware of my schema as far as I recall. So now back in app.tsx, whenever I get a new message, I wanna store it in my database. And that's of course true for both the message I get from the user as well as for the message I get from the AI. So, right now I'm always getting the complete history from the user because I'm managing that history on the front end. Maybe I want to manage that on the back end. Well, we'll see. The user message, if I get the history, is of course the last message in that history. So this is probably not the most efficient and best way, but for now I'll do it like this. And then I want to use Prisma to store that message in my database. Oh, and I also need to create a new chat, of course. I want to do that. When do I want to do that? Maybe when a user visits the chat page? Do I want to create a new chat there and redirect? I probably do. So do something like to take a look at that parameter with recparam as it seems. Param. So that is okay. I have to call this, and this gives me an object which includes chat ID as a property because that's my placeholder name, and that could be undefined because I have this question mark here. If I remove that, I guess it's then it's always a string, but it is a question mark here because I also want to support the user visiting just /chat without setting a chat ID. Now, if I don't have a chat ID, then I want to create a new chat. Yeah, exactly. Redirect to the chat page. So to create a new page, a chat, I want to use Prisma. For that, let's go back. For that, I have to import the Prisma client and set it up. So import Prisma client, create my Prisma client here, and use it. Do I have to disconnect, or does it also disconnect on its own once I'm done handling the request? Well, let's ask ChatGPT. When using Prisma, do I have to call disconnect myself? In many common use cases, you don't have to call disconnect manually. For example, if you're running a Node web server, Prisma handles connection pooling and will keep connections open for reuse. However, there are some scenarios where you might want to use disconnect short-lived scripts. I don't have that here. Graceful shutdown, long-running process. Okay, so it looks like I don't have to do that here. Okay, so I can now use Prisma. And then that's the great thing. I got great TypeScript support here because I did create my own SDK essentially with that Prisma migrate command before, based on my model definitions. So here I got chat and chat message, and I want to create a new chat here. And for that chat, how does this work? If I call create, okay, yeah, I need to set that data field, and then this is an object which will actually have that shape I defined in my schema file. So every chat will have these fields, and the great thing is ID, created at, and updated at will all be populated automatically, but messages is, I guess, not. So in here, in my data, created at ID, actually they're all optional. So I guess messages will just be an empty array initially. So I guess I can just pass an empty object to data and create an empty new chat. Will that work? And what do I get back from create? A promise, as it seems. I can await it. Whoops, await. And for that to work, this must be async. And then here, what am I getting back? I got back an object that contains, that contains the created ID, created at, and updated at timestamps. So that's my created chat. And now, of course, I'll have a chat ID here, which is created chat.id. And now I can redirect. So I can call redirect, and I redirect to the same get route, but now with a chat ID for that newly created chat. So let's give this a try. For the moment, that's all I changed, but let's see. Yeah, looks like it works. If I visit localhost 3000/chat, I'm redirected to some page that contains some random ID. So looks like that's working. I'm creating new chats with new IDs. That's great. Now, of course, I want to take a look and see if there are, well, no, before I retrieve messages, let's start storing some. So here, of course, the post route also needs that chat ID. Here, however, it's not optional. I do expect to always get such a chat ID. Yes. Do I? Yes, I do. Or I guess we could include it in the post body, in the request body. Probably makes more sense. So that in there, I got a chat ID. Now for that to work on the front end, I must make sure that I add this chat ID to the request I'm sending to the backend. So besides sending my prompt, which I'm not using anymore anyways, besides sending my history, I want to set my chat ID. Now I can get that chat ID from my URL, of course. So I guess I could use this code here to get my chat ID, to pass in my current path or my current URL in the end, create such a URL object, access the path name, split it by slashes, and then pop the last element, which is the chat ID. I guess that should work. Not sure if Hono gives me a better client-side way of getting hold of my current path, but I think that approach should work. Well, we'll just give it a try. So that should add my chat ID of the currently loaded page to the backend request. And on the backend, I then got the chat ID. I got my user message, and now I want to save the user message to the database. Sure. Yep. Copilot, go for it. Yep. Let's see. Prisma. No. Prisma chat message. Create. And the data is I'm setting the chat ID because, of course, in my schema, for every chat message, I have this chat ID field, which in the end constructs that relation between chat and chat message. So I must set that. I set the role to user because this is the message by the user, and the content to user message. Looks like, yeah, makes sense, I guess. So that will create a new message for this chat. But that's not all. Now I also want to, of course, store the message I'm getting from the AI. And this is now a bit trickier because I'm getting these chunks here. So I guess there are now two ways of storing this. Either with every incoming chunk, which will give us a lot of database writes, or after processing all the chunks, so after this for loop, once the message is complete, and I'll store it then. The disadvantage of this approach, of course, is that if the user leaves the page before the message was streamed in completely, I'll not store anything. But still, I think I'll prefer this approach here and store it once after I got the complete message. So I can await Prisma chat message create. And I got my role assistant, and I'm storing the complete message. I could also store the parsed HTML. So I could store the actual HTML code. The problem with that is that if I ever want to change my markdown parser, and I want to apply it to previously stored messages as well, that will be super hard if I'm storing the parsed markdown, if I'm storing the converted HTML code. So I think I rather store the raw text, the complete message, and I'll then reparse it whenever I load a chat. And what's the issue here, by the way? Am I not closing some bracket? Looks like somewhere something is not being closed. Oh boy. Here, probably this brand. No? Return. Oh, okay, and then this bracket here. Okay. So now hopefully I'm storing the finished chat message whenever I'm done streaming it. I'm still forwarding the parsed message with every chunk I'm receiving, but after I processed all chunks, I'm also storing that in a database. That's what I'm trying to do here. So that should store data in the database. Now, of course, whenever I load a chat with an ID that I've used before, I also want to load all the messages that belong to it. So essentially, if I have a chat ID, if I make it past this if check here, I want to load my chat data with find unique, I guess, because there will only be one chat with that ID. Sure. Looks like that's how I'm creating this query with Prisma. And then I'm interested in all the messages. Now, is there some way of automatically joining, sending one request to get the chat and all the messages in one go instead of first getting the chat and then the messages in two queries? And maybe with include? I guess like this, messages true, so that I send one request to get the chat with all its messages. Looks like that should do the trick. And then chat is an object with my messages, and all the other data, or it's null, of course, if I have an ID that does not exist. Because here I'm just checking if I have no ID. If I have an invalid ID, then I'll not have a chat here. And so in that case, I could forward the user to a 404 page. Can I also like, yeah, I guess I can send back a 404 error. How does this work? Return C. So I could send back like a basic 404 error like this, I guess. After this if check, I therefore know that I did find a chat. And in that case, I want to render this HTML page, the chat page. And I want to, of course, kind of make my chat messages available there. So I want to send this chat here, this data, to this chat page. So chat page is this page, which is server rendered, not client rendered. It has JSX code, but I am rendering it on the server here. And then I'm loading my scripts here, my client-side scripts. So now here's the tricky part. I now need to inject that data, that chat data, which I'm getting on the server, into my client-side script code, or make it available to that client-side script code, I guess. And how do I go about that now? How do I best go about that? I mean, I could add like a global script and set up some global variable, which I pre-populate with that. I'll have to do some TypeScript hacks to access it in the other files, but that would be one way of doing it. So yeah, sure. Let's maybe do it like this for now. So here I expect to get some props, some prop object, where I maybe got my chat ID, though I don't need that. It's in the URL, I guess. So instead, well, nonetheless, I get my chat ID and I get my messages, where every message has a role and a content and is an array. So is the stream still up, by the way? I think it is. I hope so. Yeah, okay. I just got like a warning message in OBS here. Okay, so great, thank you. Okay, so I could set up like a script here and then set up like a chat ID, or actually like access window, like in the good old days, and add a chat ID here. And insert my chat ID here. But I'm not sure if I want to go down that route. Not sure whether I want to do that. So I would pull out my chat ID here and get my messages. And then I guess chat ID is a string, so I can do it like this. And then here, I could also set up window.messages. And that would add these two variables to the window object. Well, let's see where it works, and then we can fine-tune it thereafter anyways. So back here in chat TSX, I can now access the window object. And in there, I should now find chat ID and messages, of course. However, TypeScript does not like that. So what I'll do is I'll declare that my window object will have a chat ID property, which is of type string, and a messages property, which has this shape. And now I can safely access that. So that will then give me my chat ID here and my initial messages, I guess. And I should be fine storing that in global variables here, because this script should re-execute whenever I load this page again with a different chat ID anyways. So I think this should be fine if I don't have like a logical error here. So that's that. Now here I can output my initial messages. And now I got a complaint because, of course, role is narrowed down to be assistant or user here. Here, on the other hand, I'm saying that it's a string in general. So I should be a bit more strict here to make TypeScript happy. And of course, I have to ensure in my code that it will always be assistant or user. And yeah, with that, I guess I can also use my chat ID here now instead of pulling that from the URL. Also got some error in this file. Yeah, of course, now I need to set chat ID equal to chat.id and messages equal to chat.messages. And now I'm sending that data, which I'm getting from the database, to this chat page. Now, of course, if I'm creating a new chat, I'll have an ID, but messages will probably be an empty array, but that shouldn't be a problem. Except for that there is a problem here. Okay, this ID is not defined. Where is this coming from? Oh, okay, yeah, this is, yeah. When injecting this here, of course, I must make sure that this is stored as a string here. So I'm server rendering this, so I need the quotes here, and then I inject the actual value between the quotes so that it, in this JavaScript code that's generated here, it is a string. What else? Unexpected token and which unexpected token? In that ID? Oh, okay. These quotes are not used as quotes. So I guess I can use the same approach. Whoops, not like this. I can use the same approach as I have here and just call JSON stringify to ensure that this is output as a string. Will this work? No, why is it not? Why is it escaping those quotes here? Oh, of course, yeah, because in JSX, this is not how it works. If I want to have unescaped code, I need to dangerously set this. I have to dangerously set the inner HTML code here. And like this. And then here have this window.messages like this. Okay, so now I got rid of those errors. So what I essentially had to do here, if I put the code between the script tags, it would have been escaped by default. But if I want to render it as actual HTML, I have to do this with dangerously set inner HTML, just as I did it before when I rendered the chat messages. So with that, that page renders. So now comes the interesting part. If I now send a message, give me the code to render a red box on a web page. Let's see if everything crashes. Internal server error. Okay, that's great. What's wrong here? What is wrong here? That's a bunch of garbage. Invalid Prisma chat message create invocation. Data, chat ID, role user, content, invalid value provided, expected string, provided object. What? Oh, content is again an object with role and content. That does not make sense. So let's see. In my backend code, in the post route, content, user message. User message is what I'm extracting here. Sure, yeah. So there I want the content, because I'm getting that from that history, which I'm getting from the front end, and that is an array full of objects where every object has a role and a content. So I was again storing the full object here as a content, which is wrong. Okay, server restarted. Let's try it again. Give me the code for a red box on a web page. Streaming it in, just like before. So that works. And that's, okay, that's interesting. If I now reload, indeed, so I am reloading here, right? I am reloading, and indeed it is fetching my messages. It's showing my message here and then the reply. The only problem I see here, or a bunch of problems, is that for one, it's rendering that code snippet that was in the reply as actual HTML now, which is not great, and it's missing some text, which maybe wasn't stored, looks like. So a bunch of problems here. So one problem I have, of course, is that I'm storing my message as raw text. So when I'm loading my chat here, my chat data, when I'm in this get route, I'm also getting my raw text messages here. So the messages I'm setting here, I'm sending to the front end, are also raw text. What I need instead is HTML. So I should again process all my messages. And I could outsource this into a helper function. For now, I'll just copy it here. So what I'll need to do is go through all my chat messages, parse every message, so parse every message here, or the content, right? The content of every message, the actual text, and then use this HTML file, or overwrite the message content with that HTML code. I'm not storing it in the database again, unless Prisma does this magically on its own. Instead, I'm overwriting the content, and then the messages I'm sending to the client in the end, to the front end, should be the actual HTML, the parsed code. Yeah, awesome. So if I reload, this is now the rendered content. Okay, so time for some questions. Thank you. Can we also have some Angular projects? Yeah, definitely. I'm just playing around with different technologies. Using Hono and all that stuff here is just one. Basically here I'm using some technologies, Hono, Prisma, I have not used in a long time or not at all. So I wanted to explore them together with you, whilst hopefully building a somewhat interesting application. But definitely building projects with Angular or all those other interesting technologies is something I'd like to do in future streams too. Thank you, Maximilian. I've learned so much JavaScript from your Udemy courses. Unfortunately, I cannot invest time in learning TypeScript, although I'm enrolled in React, the complete guide. It doesn't make me learn the stuff. I try harder, but I sense JavaScript is becoming TypeScript by each TC, I guess you mean 39 iterations. So I guess I'll wait for the good stuff. So you don't have to learn TypeScript if you don't like it. Sure, TypeScript is getting a lot of usage out there, definitely. And there might be many jobs that require it, but not all. Definitely not all projects are written in TypeScript. And getting those JavaScript fundamentals right and learning how to use React and so on first might be the better idea. You can always dive into TypeScript thereafter, because getting like a solid TypeScript foundation will not be too hard. It can be super intimidating if you take a look at like advanced TypeScript type definitions, advanced TypeScript features, but getting like a solid foundation once you have a solid JavaScript foundation, I think should be quite doable. So for example, here in this project, I'm using TypeScript, but you won't see too much TypeScript specific code in there, even though I am using TypeScript here. And it's definitely not a complex app, but also not super trivial. So yeah, I guess like JavaScript first and then some TypeScript might be a good strategy. Are you working on any new course? No, but some updates. But I can't, or I don't want to share more right now because I don't want to set like any false expectations, but there will definitely be some course content. I have a side question related to Hono, but why are you rendering your chat page component with script tags? Can you not just render it like an imported component? I guess you mean here this part, right? Now, the reason I'm doing this is that this chat TSX file, this component here, whilst it looks like a regular React component, is actually just using Hono's feature of server rendering JSX components or functional components. So I'm basically using JSX as a templating language here. This is happening on the server side. But then I also have some client side components, this chat component here in the chat TSX file in the client folder specifically. And I want to render this on the client side only, not on the server side. Also because I haven't figured out how to get Hono to render it both on the server and client side. So that's why I'm then loading it here with the script tag so that it will be loaded on the client side once this server rendered page here was loaded by the browser. I hope that makes some sense. Yeah, it was nice that it showed the HTML code rendered. You could add a button to display it in rendered mode. True. You could definitely take advantage of that. The fact that it shows the rendered code. Yeah, might be interesting to kind of like implement some preview. You're right. A Dino Angular analog.js project would be really interesting. Oh, there would be so many interesting projects. I guess time's like the only issue, but I'll definitely try to remember that and maybe create some project with those technologies in the future. Never heard of this Hono. Does it seem like Next.js? Actually, not at all. Like Next.js is like a full stack framework built up on React, you could say. Hono is really an independent backend framework, and you don't need to add any client-side logic at all. It's more like an Express.js replacement with more client-side features added to it, but primarily, it's like a backend framework with some front-end stuff attached to it. I think they even say that in some blog post, that they're coming from the backend and they also added some front-end functionality. Yeah, I think Hono has gotten some popularity, got a bit more popular over the last months and year maybe, but I have also never worked with it before this project. Okay, so now I got my chats stored. Loading a chat works. If I have no chat ID, I get an error. Cool. Is it because of that slash? Oh, okay. because of that trailing slash. So if I visit /chat without an ID and without a trailing slash, a new chat is created. And if I visit an existing chat, I can see the messages, though I forgot. Yeah, this was the one with that ID. Cool. So now it would also be nice to like see a history of chats here on the left, I guess. So to have like a bunch of links here. So I can actually render that on the server, I guess. Or do I also want to render this on the client? Maybe I want to render it on the client so that I can also have like a dynamically updated title, like it's the case on, like it's the case with ChatGPT, where in your chat history your titles update once you send your first message. Maybe I want that feature too. Yeah, so I might want to render that list of chats on the client side. So in my client component here, I might want to have a fragment around that div so that in there I can have like a nav bar, which I can position on the left with fixed, maybe left 0, give it a height of my full screen, some background color, sure, some, that looks very narrow, width 12. So have some width here, flex column to have like a stack of items, item center. Yeah, sure, let's give it a try. So my idea is that in there, I would then have, well, actually, we might have an unordered list in there and use these flex styles here for that list. Use the full width and height. And then in there have list items where every item is like a link for chat 1, chat 2. And of course, that should actually be populated based on actual chats. But yeah, I want to have like this navigation bar here on the left. And obviously the styling is horrible. I'll have to fix that. For example, have justify start here to start at the top and have some padding X of 12, PY 16 maybe to push it down a little bit. Also give this more width, 48. Something like this. And also have like a nice gap here. Okay, so that should be my chats here. And of course, they should be clickable soon. And they should be rendered dynamically. So for that, I expect to get a list of all my chats and update the list when I start a new chat. Now, of course, I start a new chat on the backend when I visit this route and I'm redirected if I did not have a chat ID. So, I want to load a list of all my chat IDs whenever I have a valid chat ID. So whenever I'm ready to display the chat page. So here, once I got a valid chat ID, once I got a valid chat, I want to get my chat IDs by using Prisma, chat. Is there something like a find all? Of course, later I want to find only the chats for this user, but for the moment I want to get all my chats. And I only want to select the ID from there. I guess that is how I can pick specific columns, specific fields. So I want to get the IDs, and I guess if there is no where clause, it will give me all chats. So that will give me a list of all my chat IDs. And actually, I also will need chat titles, but I'll take care of that later. So for the moment, it'll just be the IDs. Then I want to pass my chat IDs through a chat IDs prop to chat page. So here I expect to get my chat IDs. And that should be an array of strings for the moment. And then, of course, I also want to add this to my window object to make it available to my client-side chat component. So here I'll have my chat IDs, which is this array of strings. And then here I got my chat IDs from window.chatIDs. And now here I can go through my chat IDs and output a bunch of links where every link leads to /chat/the ID. And then I'm just displaying chat and then the ID here as a text for now. Okay, got an error. Chat IDs map is not a function. Why is it not a function? Chat IDs should be an array of strings. Okay, I got an error in this file as it seems. Oh, okay, yeah. Find many returns a promise, which I need to await. And then this is an object. This is an array of objects where every object has an ID property. So actually, I want to convert this and pull out that ID so that I get an array of IDs. Okay, now this works. Styling is a bit broken, but I can see my chats here and I can switch between them. Most of them are empty, but the one chat here that has some content is loaded once I click on it. So that is working. Set a darker background color for the nav tag. Yeah, I'll definitely do that. I'm not done with styling. It's totally broken right now. I'm trying to get this to work and then I'll style it. I've been using Next.js for years. I recently tried Next.js and I feel it's faster and optimized. For example, the initial build is much faster at first glance. What do you think between the two? Between Hono and Next.js, you mean? I feel like Next.js has been a bit too slow in development, not in production, but in development, for the last 1 or 2 years. And I have not used it within the last month or so. So might be that it got faster during development too, would be awesome. For the moment here, Hono feels faster to me. But again, Hono is not really like a great competitor to Next.js. You have to do a lot more wire up work if you want to use Hono with an integrated frontend. You have to pass data to the client like this. There might be other ways, but this is the way I'm doing it. I'm manually setting global variables on the window object. This is less convenient than doing it with Next.js. I'm just playing around with it here to figure out how Hono works and how I can build my own like integrated back and front end solution with Hono. Okay, so that's working. The style is awesome. Awful, not awesome. But before I'll fix the styling, I want to make sure, or I want to try assigning some meaningful titles to these chats. And for that, I'll actually adjust my schema here. I think every chat should not just have a bunch of messages, but also a title. And the title should be a string. And can I do something? Yeah, I can give it a default new chat, which is great. That's the default. If I'm just creating a new chat, it should be just new chat. But then I want to update this title once I got back one reply by the AI. Because in ChatGPT, of course, there is a title automatically generated based on the question you asked, based on the reply you got back. And I want to do the same here. And actually, I guess, yeah, based on the question I asked, I want to generate a title. So in my post route on the backend, I want to take that user message and I want to send that to OpenAI's API here too, and not just get back a reply, but I want to ask OpenAI to give me a short title based on that question I sent. So I'll send 2 requests to OpenAI. One to get that stream for the actual reply, but also one request to get the title. To do that, I can use the AI SDK by Vercel and use the generate text function, because I don't want to get a stream now. I just want to get a short text. And well, I guess technically I don't want to block the generation of this stream or me sending back a response by waiting for that title to be generated. So it might be best to set up a separate backend route that takes care of title generation. But for the moment, I'll do it all in the same place here. So I'll call generate text and use my OpenAI model. But now I won't send a message, but instead a prompt. And the prompt could be something like, generate a very short title based on the following prompt or question sent by the user. And then I want to inject the user message content. So the message sent by the user. And I only want to do that if there is no title yet. So I guess that will be the case if the history only contains one message. Because if it's longer than that, that means I already got back a reply and so on. So there's no need to regenerate the title. But if history length is 1, if I got only one message in there, then that is the initial message by the user. So in that case, I want to generate some text. I want to await this. And I'll get back a result, an object that has the text. And that should be that title, which I want to assign to my chat, I guess. So in that case, I want to use Prisma, reach out to my chat, and update my chat that has my current chat ID here, and set the title to text. Now I'm getting an error right now because I have not regenerated my Prisma client SDK based on the updated schema. I'll have to do that, but that should be the code that does the trick. This should update it in the database. And of course, I also want to update it on the front end, which is an even better argument to use a separate route, I guess. Because now I have to merge this into my response stream here. Which is not necessarily a lot of fun, I guess. Yeah, I guess I'll rather have like a separate route, chat title. That also allows me to kind of send this at the same time, like my original prompt, and therefore not block that prompt. So here I expect to get the chat ID and the prompt, the user prompt, let's say. And then I want to run this code here, generate my title based on that user prompt. Maybe also wrap this by triple double quotes to like make it really clear to the AI where the prompt is. And then I update this in my database. And I also want to return this title as JSON to the front end, so that the front end, whenever the user submits the initial question, can send a request to get a title for that chat. Yeah, that might do the trick. We'll see. And then this chat post route stays untouched. Okay, now, so I changed my Prisma schema. So what I'll need to do is rerun my Prisma migration, I guess, to update my database and to generate a new client SDK. And well, what I'll do here is I'll delete my database and of course, therefore lose all my data, but during development, I can do that without problems. And then I'll rerun this command, which I had before. Where is it? This command. And then I can restart my development server. So now this error is also gone. Now this title property is known. The database should be updated. Now I need to tweak my client-side code and send that request for the title whenever the user does submit a new message, if that is the first message sent by the user. So here, maybe before I send this request, we're actually yeah. Yeah, I guess before I sent the request? No, after. Well, it doesn't matter. Before I send the request, I want to send another request to chat title. Method post, headers, content type application, sure thing, body, JSON stringify, send my chat ID and my prompt. So what was in the form. However, first I want to check if chat messages length is equal to 0. So if it's the first message I have in there, then I want to send this request. And here I'll actually not await this because I don't want to block this execution. Instead, I'll use then get my response here and extract the JSON content. And then thereafter, yeah, sure, I can update the document title, whatever. But I also want to update my state here. And update my sidebar, therefore. So I'll add a new constant and have a new state here, my chats and set chats. And that should be an array. And in there, I actually want to have a bunch of objects, let's say, where every object has an ID of the chat and the title of the chat. ID is a string and title is a string. And I have an array of such objects here. Now, initially, I want to have some initial chats which are loaded from the backend. So instead of chat ID, this will be chats here. And on the server side, when I get this route, here I'm getting my chat IDs. I actually instead want to get my chats. So I don't just want to select the IDs, but also the title for every chat. And then I'm setting this chats prop here. And I'm using my chats here. And I'm forwarding it like this, as an array of objects where every object has an ID and a title. And here I expect to get a bunch of chats, where every chat, or where chats is an array of objects with an ID and a title. And then here I have window chats, which is the stringified version of my chats prop here. And then in the client-side code, I can access window chats at least as soon as I update my TypeScript declaration here. And that is one place where you see the advantage of Next.js. Passing data between server and frontend is definitely a bit easier, though I might be able to improve it here as well. This is just like a first version. So now here I also updated this. And now, finally, I can set chats as I got it here as initial value. Actually, here I'll name it initial chats to avoid the name clash. And then update it whenever I got a new title for the chat I just started. So let's see here, I'm sending that request. Then I'm getting back the title for the chat I'm currently in. So I then want to call set chats, use the function form since I'm updating my state here based on the old chat's state. And I want to find the chat with the chat ID I'm currently working on and override it with a new object where I'm keeping the ID, but I'm setting the title to the title I got back from the backend. Otherwise, if it's a different chat with a different ID, I'll leave it unchanged. That's the idea. And then down here, I can loop through all my chat items here and use the ID here in the link and output the title here. And this might totally not work, but we'll see. Not a great condition, to be honest. It can easily end up with a history over 1 and without title due to network error, for example. Definitely. There are a lot of edge cases that are not handled here. I'm just trying to get like a first version, and then I can handle all the edge cases and potential errors. There are a lot of things that can go wrong here. I just want to see if that first version works. Because at the moment, storing the history on the front end and using that as a source of truth is also not great. So there are many things that need to be improved. But this has grown organically. I'm just trying to get this sidebar to work now. Okay, so dev server is up and running. Now let's visit a new chat. And initially it says new chat. If I now say, give me a red box rendered on a web page, or give me the code for a red box, it's outputting that. This title looks promising. I guess I want to get rid of the double quotes, but other than that, it looks fine. Sure, we could tweak it. We could tell the AI to generate a better sentence than that, but it looks fine. Looks like it worked. If I reload, it's also still there. Now, if I start a new chat, like this is my old one. Okay, styling is off. I'll have to fix that, but this is here. And what's the meaning of life? Got this. Can navigate between those chats. If I ask a follow-up question, like make it blue, now the title should hopefully not change. And yeah, it's giving me the updated code with blue, and the title did not change. So that is working. Now, regarding the styling here, I want to make sure that the items are always pushed to the left. So if I have a new chat is also on the left. And I don't want to have those double quotes here. And I wonder, where are they coming from? I guess when I generate my chat title, I get back a string, and I'm storing that text. And I guess the quotes are included there. Probably because I get it back as markdown? Question mark. Let's do good old console log debugging. Exactly, console log that text and see. So, whoops, that is ChatGPT. So let's see. Write something. Yeah, the double quotes are included in that text generated by the AI. Now, the problem is there will maybe not always be double quotes because it's, of course, not deterministic. So I can't just say remove the first and last character. It might not always be the case that I have double quotes. I could try something like tell the AI, do not wrap the title in any quotes or special characters. Do not, I'll just wrap this into a new line here, by the way, so that it's a bit easier to read for you. Do not, do not format the text as markdown, JSON, or anything else. Give me some raw text. I could try something like this. I guess I can also define a system prompt here with the AI SDK. So that might be the better place for instructions like this. So I could grab those instructions and put them there, because I think I read somewhere that the system prompt is the better place for general instructions like this. So let's now try this. And I should definitely add a new chat button, I guess, but for now I'll do it like this. What's your name? Yeah, now the double quotes are gone. Well, this might be good enough. We'll see. Probably with some prompt injection, you could get around that. But for the moment, I'll leave it like this. I could, of course, also like add more checks. And in general, prompt injection is definitely a potential problem. But for now, this is a working version, which is nice. Okay, so what are the questions here? No, I'm not using Next.js, but this is Hono. Where is Rust course, Laravel course? I can't find any good course for Rust and Laravel. Well, the problem is with Rust, I'm absolutely not an expert on this, so no course planned on that. And with Laravel, it's been some years since I worked with that a lot. That being said, I'd love to get more into Laravel, maybe also in some streams, so then maybe in the future there can also be some course on that, but it's definitely not planned for the near term. I am following your teaching since 2016. Thanks for being there always unknowingly for me. Wow, that is just amazing. Like, you've been along for so long. I started in 2016, and hearing that someone here, Sankat, you in this case, has been around since then, that really means a lot to me. That's amazing. So yeah, thank you so much. Thank you so much for being around for all that time. Well, and with that, I am actually running out of time here for today, unfortunately. I gotta leave soon, but I think we made some nice progress. We got nice progress here. We got some titles here. We got like the whole formatting stuff. Yeah, there are some bugs. There are edge cases, a lot of edge cases that are not handled. Error handling is missing. Code could probably be improved in many places. Styling could be improved. There are lots of things could be improved, but I'm super happy with that current state of the app. I will probably continue building it in future streams, though I will also explore some other things in future streams. I hope it was helpful to you. I will absolutely push that to GitHub. So let me just commit my changes here. What did we do? I added title generation, chat multiple chats, and database storage. And now I'll push that. And you can find all that code. Yeah, creative chaos, exactly. You can find all that code here. Take a look at it, improve it, fork it, do whatever you want. And I will probably also continue working on it in future streams, as I said. Thank you all for being around. I hope you liked it. Thank you for being around since 2016. Yiku Feely means a lot to me. Build something in Next or Vue on live. As I said before, so many technologies. I'd love to work with all of them, but I will definitely build more stuff in future streams. Get many plans. Time's the issue, but I'll do my best. And yeah, I hope you liked it. And I hope I'll see you again in future streams. And maybe we can continue building this app here, build other stuff like that. And thank you so much for subscribing for Shimya. Thank you so much. Much appreciated. So You all have a great day, night, evening, morning, whatever it is for you. I'll head home now, have some dinner, and see you in future streams. Bye.